In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to animate weapons for Ravenfield using Blender. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up the hands file, select everything, copy, just Control C, return to your weapon, paste. Now obviously you're going to have to take your weapon and rescale and reposition it. So just do this by dragging the main object around, scaling appropriately. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is Ravenfield and not some AAA title. And I generally like to position it towards the hand that's going to be holding it, so generally the right hand, and then move it about the elbow. This helps with positioning later on. So now you're going to want to select everything except for your camera, and I messed this up a little bit here because I'm not always smart with this stuff. And this helps keep your camera at the origin location so that everything looks fine in game. And the personal preference on how you want to position all this. This is just what I like. But obviously you can do your own thing. So once that's all set, you have to set the rotation and scale of all your objects to 0 basically. And you do that by hitting Control A. And now you see here with the slide I'm using a solidify modifier, so that messes up a bit. But I fixed that pretty easily. So you hit Control A to open up that menu and just select rotation and scale. Yeah, so this is the solidify modifier being weird. I'm not quite sure why it does that, but it doesn't take long for me to fix it. And there you go. I'm just making sure everything looks right. Saving. You save a lot in Blender because you will mess stuff up. Now I just close the two side tabs and generate a new window and set that to dope sheet. That'll show you all your keyframes, which are the individual animation points. And setting that to pose mode, and hit I, whole character. And this takes all the bones of the arms, gives you a default frame. For some reason it's at frame 63, which I figure out later and fix. Now the next thing I do is I turn Autokey on, which ensures that every time you move something that the that Blender remembers it and actually records it. So now I'm going to select the weapon itself and hit I again, and then location, rotation, scale. That gives it, all three of those are locked. This is its position. So I'm just going to clean a few things up because this is from an earlier attempt where I was doing this improperly. So I'm just going to close a couple of those bottom tabs. Keep the timeline because that's pretty useful. You don't really need anything else, but if you want it, you can have it. So now you have to parent the hand to the weapon, and then do that in bone constraint, child of, and then whatever you call the part that you're going to be gripping. And then I generally grip the offhand, parent the offhand to the magazine. It's just easier to do reloads that way. It depends on what you're doing. So if you're, I don't know, if you're doing a bolt action, you might want to parent it to the bolt, but that's up to you. Now I'm just positioning the hand here, and this will be the position that will actually hold it in the idle position. And this is all very crude because this is just for the tutorial. This isn't for proper release and everything. And I would recommend using the tutorial and the guide I originally made by Hyper, because his is really good about actually making animations look nice, but he uses bones and that doesn't really work too well for Ravenfield. Yeah, so just some more positioning. Again, this is crude and not too nice looking. And don't worry about clipping. Most of the time it's negligible. It's gonna happen. I mean, if it's egregious, fix it, but stuff like that it's more or less fine. So now I'm just going to check to make sure everything looks right. First person, I noticed that the left arm's looking kind of weird, so I grabbed effectively the shoulder, or I guess really the arm, and just make it look a little more natural. And in hindsight, I probably should have stuck out the arms a little more, but too late now. And I'm just generating a tab up in the sidebar to keep track of everything. You hit 0 to look through the camera, and it helps make sure everything looks right. This is about where I realize it's on frame 63 for some reason. And then there's this errant keyframe for who knows why. I just extend that out a little bit for my own ease of use. Try to delete it, but it doesn't go away. So I just leave it there. It doesn't affect anything in the end. And now on to animating proper. So this is your idle frame. And so I just duplicate that to have 2 frames because that's generally what Unity likes. And it counts from frame 0. It's kind of weird. I'll get into it a little more later. So I'm just making sure everything's parented right. So if everything's parented right, it should move like that. So now I'm going to set up the draw animation again. This is really pretty much as simple as it can get. You can make things more complicated, obviously, if you want. The same principles apply. And I like to make the draw pretty quick because you don't want to spend like 6 seconds taking the thing out and then you're getting shot up. Yeah, so just bring it up to the idle position, save. And now on to fire animation again. It's pretty simple, especially with something like this. Just the slide goes back. Obviously, if you're doing bolt action or lever action or whatever, you actually have to have the hand move and grab something. But I'm just doing something simple for sake of demonstration. Again, just save repeatedly and just test everything, make sure it looks right before you actually export to Unity, because then you have to start bouncing back and forth and saving over stuff. And I just duplicate that frame because that's a good idle frame. I like to start things with everything keyframed. And I'm setting up aim here, and that point, that diagonal intersection of the horizon, that's the middle of your screen. So you want your sights to align there. And again, just make this a couple frames because that's what Unity likes. So here we are in Unity. I'm just gonna save again, make sure everything looks right. Yeah, so back in Unity. And yeah, so you're gonna find under Models, Weapons, there it is. Click on it, drag it up into your hierarchy, put it wherever you like. I put it near the top. You're gonna need to add the weapon component. You're also gonna need to add an audio component. I don't do that in this take. I mess up a little bit and have to add a couple cuts later, but add an audio component, even if you're just testing stuff. Duplicate the muzzle and casing particles from one of the default weapons is the easiest way to do this. Obviously, you can position it later, but this is just quick and dirty, kind of show how this all works stuff. Drag it in there. Then you need to set up your projectile. I haven't set up anything proper, so in this case, it's a 7.62 Glock. And then I don't know if this is 100% necessary, but I add that to the arms because I don't know if you need to. Now, to add the animation, you add something from the default take and you add the keyframe frame number. Just name it. Like I said, Unity starts from frame 0. So if you put something on frame 1 in Blender, it's really on frame 0. It's kind of weird. It takes a moment to apply. And I just name things like weapon name, action. So again, just this one's from 10 to 20. Apply. Yeah, sorry, this takes a moment. My computer's not the best for this kind of stuff. Now I'm just going to make sure I have frame numbers right for all this. It helps to keep Blender open when you're configuring Unity. Now setting up the fire animations requires an extra step. You need to set up what's called a mask, which make sure that it plays properly regardless of position. Otherwise, your slide is going to hover in the middle of nowhere, or it's going to just freak out. So you need to apply it from this model, and you need to have the only stuff you want checked is everything that's going to move when it fires. So whatever that may be. In this case, it's just the slide. But if you're doing something more complicated, it might be parts of the model and the hands. So just some of it is going to require some of it is going to require trial and error. Now just setting up the aim. Again, pretty simple stuff. Apply. And sorry for the low quality of the audio. I obviously do not do this regularly. This is just something I decided I should address since the guide there are a great number of mistakes I make. So I'm just making a new controller, duplicating an existing one. Mine are more complicated than they need to be just because of how I like to do stuff. And you just open the action and insert your animation. It's that easy. Generally, you want to copy something similar. I might do a second thing about doing dynamic reloads and advanced reloads and fire animations and how that all works. But for now, this is just the basics. Drag that into controller, hit play. Now I noticed the slide's not working. I'm trying to figure out why that is. And I realize this is just a dumb mistake I made with how the ammo counter was. Because of how I configure things. So I'm going to attempt to mess with it here to no real avail. Yeah, so if you find this useful or at least somewhat helpful, let me know and I will probably turn the guide into proper video tutorials because that tends to be easier to follow. And if this isn't useful and you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me know and I will try to address any issues you may have. Now, so this is more of me trying to figure out this dumb mistake I've made. And I'm trying all kinds of things that just don't work. Stuff happens, especially if you're new to Unity and just modding in general. You're going to make mistakes and you're not going to know immediately what you did, but eventually you'll figure it out, or hopefully someone in the Discord might actually be able to help you. So this is about where I figure out what I've done. That I've set my ammo to -1, which should be an actual number, actual positive number. So I'm just waiting for this to apply. Yeah, so I'm just going to set it to 1,000 so that I can show this off easily instead of having to reload like every 10 rounds since there's no proper reload for this. And now you can see it working. The slide is going back when it fires. Frame rate's not the best because, again, my computer is not optimized for this kind of stuff. And obviously the muzzle and the casing particle location is all messed up. Now I'm just going to quickly show you how to set up the third-person transform. So you're going to go, while you're in play mode, go into the scene. And just move it around to where you want. Now I unfortunately at this point don't know how to set up the hands to look right. I haven't been able to get an answer from people who seem to know what they're doing yet. But as soon as I do figure that out, I will let you all know. Yeah, so you're just going to position it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And those values up there, you need to remember because it does not update the actual scene. So I like to take a picture of them with my phone just to have them once you exit play mode. So yeah, exit play mode, and then go to your weapon, and under the third person transform, third person offset, input those numbers. Excuse me. Yeah, so just input those numbers, make sure that everything's right, just hit play to confirm. In this case, yes, everything's right with the world. So that's that. Again, if you have any questions, or if this made no sense, let me know. If this was helpful and did make sense, also let me know. Thanks for watching.